and James. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome back to another Lost the Plot video. We hope you are well, and this is our review of the Batman film that was released on the 4th of March. But before we get into that, we are going to start with James, as always, and his unpopular opinion.
Blink-182 is shit.
Straight.
What was shit?
I didn't hear that. Blink-182 is shit.
Blink-182?
Yeah.
Oh, were they the...
Exactly those. Oh yeah, them. Yeah. That's it. Worthless, that's what they are.
What's the main song that they do?
That Small Things one.
Yeah.
Small Things one.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. That emo just grunge sort of.
Piss off, lads.
I know a few people who know you, who you've already made enemies with.
Oh yeah.
Over that.
I don't give a shit anymore. Yeah. They're all going to hate me now.
Blink-182 suck. I mean, that song's a whiny mess as well.
Most of their songs. I can't think of one that isn't, I'll be honest with you.
I feel like they all follow the same vibe.
It's like, sorry Tom, can you just enunciate please? That might be an idea, won't it? Hey? There you go, what are you, nearly 50 now? Come on, sort it out.
They're still going?
In some sort of shithouse form, aren't they?
Oh, is it like that thing that they did with Five and Steps and shit, like they're just there?
Yeah, but at least they fucked out bangers, didn't they?
That's true. Well, I mean...
Was it the time he basically ended up with all the credit for the UFO videos that got released?
He's a dick about that and all, isn't he?
As if it was him that did it.
There's a lot of animosity towards Blink-182 and I've got a lot of time for it.
There you go. You're welcome.
I don't have an opinion on that, so...
Yeah, just agree.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Right, off to a great start. Blink-182, you suck. Right, as I was previously stated before we talked about Blink-182, we are going to talk about the Batman film that was released on March the 4th and our reviews of it. This is again going to be a short video, but forgive us if we start arguing or mumbling on about tripe. So, before we actually get into our main points, all we're going to do is go around the table, give it a quick score out of 10, and a line just to summarise, or a line or a word, it's entirely up to you guys, to summarise what we've watched. We'll start on the far end of the table.
Right. It's probably going to sound lower than people expect me to say, but I'm going for 7 out of 10. But I don't think of many films recently where I've gone much higher than that anyway. Like I think I've said this to like all of you, like it takes a lot for me to hit those higher numbers. Like if I was to say 10 out of 10, I can't think of any films that will hit it for me. But yeah, it's as well, I don't think people are going to expect my general sort of view of it, which is it's very much a superhero comic book movie. Whereas I know a lot of people are probably still sort of jumping on the dark, gritty, realistic take. I still feel like it's way more of a superhero comic book movie than even some of the movies that would love to attribute that title to themselves. So that's where I'm sat as a general view.
Right, Tom, 7 out of 10. James?
I'm going to one up you and go 8 out of 10. Just because I want to give a bit of breathing room in case like a film comes out in the next few years that's a bit like, you know, I don't want to set the bar too high.
Yeah.
But so I think 8's high enough for anything. It's one of my favourite things I've watched recently, to be honest.
Have you watched much?
Well, after the shithousery that was Marvel last year,
to be fair.
That just completely blew it out of the water for me.
Yeah.
They've jumped on like it was a week effort from.
Exactly. So coming out of that, obviously that helps a bit. But yeah, it was the same experience for me as like watching like Infinity War and Endgame. It was that same feeling again, which apart from a comic book based movie, I haven't had since those films were out, to be honest. So actually watching something on that level again and it feeling like such a event, let's say, to actually have a proper Batman film again, it just ticked all the boxes for me.
Nice, like it. I'll go next. Same score as Tom, 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I thought some parts were lacklustre. and I thought some parts were underwhelming. And I used that vocabulary because I think I was so excited about it, and I was expecting so much. And because I was expecting so much, I probably didn't get that.
I was saying this
So
after we talked.
Therefore, I'm using those type of words and adjectives.
That's how I viewed the way you probably thought about it.
Yeah.
Was because after we last talked about it, the excitement, I felt I was probably at the bottom, but it wasn't because I wasn't excited. Whereas I could see your excitement.
Yeah,
I was like,
buzzing.
I knew that was could end up being a negative to your experience.
Yeah, and it was, and I think that's a lot of the reasoning for my points, to be fair. And we'll finish off with Matthew, the Batman fanboy.
Yeah, well, I think your guess that mine's better than yours. I've given it a 9 because it's probably the film I've enjoyed watching the most since probably Endgame. So that's...
Yeah.
And I think I was buzzing for it as well, and I think a lot of it did, for me, give me what I wanted from the film.
Yeah.
So I wasn't disappointed by most elements from it, so yeah, I've given it quite a healthy score. Not the 10, I was debating between a 10 and 1, but after thinking about it, I'm going to go with a 9. But
To be fair,
I do think quite highly of this film, it could be a 10.
yeah, the thing is, I agree with what you said. It's hard to give a film a 10 because things that are released, you can't watching it, well, that's bloody perfect.
That's the best thing.
Because then if you keep giving out 10s, it sort of undermines every other 10 that you've given beforehand. So
if you can still take stuff away from it and say, oh, it would have worked better, or it would have still worked if you didn't have this in it, then it's not perfect yet.
Yeah.
It's still then it's always going to be down to your own messy choices.
Right. They're the scores. So it's quite positive so far.
Yeah.
I mean, 7's not bad.
Yeah.
8's decent. 9's you're sucking it off.
Rightly so.
Shall we delve into the actual film a little bit? We'll try. It's a review. I was going to say we'll try and keep spoilers. No, we're not. There'll be spoilers in this video.
That was that bit.
If you've not watched it,
You're in the wrong
place.
Unless people watch this to whether they should watch the film.
But I think they're going to get that from what we've just said.
Yeah, that's true.
We've said enough spoiler free, I think.
Yeah.
So piss off if you've not watched it.
And watch it, then come back
in
to us.
about 3.5 hours.
Right. Let's start off with the fanboy.
Yes.
I'll probably call you that a lot more for this episode. Go on, talk to us. What you got for us? First point, go, bash.
So, with this film, obviously the big thing about it was the tone, and I think they didn't disappoint on that. I think the tone, dark and gritty, for this film was perfect for a Batman film. I feel.
Carry on. I'll go to answer your point. Carry on.
I feel like Gotham was shown to be basically a shithole for what it is, and no other Batman film has shown it to be as dark and brooding as. I don't think any of the scenes were set during the daytime.
It seemed to be.
Well, yeah, even that funeral scene, it was supposed to be in the day, but it felt
felt
so murky.
Yeah.
It was just like.
And I just think that was perfect for a Batman that hadn't established his mark on the city as yet.
The whole just shooting of it is just ominous.
Yeah.
Just constant feeling of right. Okay, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Something bad.
Yeah, that's another point. There's always. I feel like even the scenes where not a lot necessarily happening, you always feel tension because of how dark it is and how.
That's how it's shot, though, isn't it? The atmosphere and the actual shot itself.
The characters as well that are in this film, you always feel like something could happen in any moment, and there's always even when Batman's going to investigate a crime scene that had happened before, a day or so before, it just felt like something could jump out at any time, or something could blow up at any time, or anything like that. And I just thought that was. I've never been on edge for a film for a while.
Yeah.
The whole way through.
Yeah.
And for a film of that length, for it to actually keep you for most of that on that same attitude was perfect. But it was perfect in terms of what their intention was. But at the same time, I don't think anyone really expected it because you thought, oh, it's gonna they're using the same thing, but it's clearly, obviously, that's what they wanted you to do. They wanted you to just be waiting for something all
Yeah.
the time, even if nothing actually happened.
The point I was going to add to yours is the fact that it was like a noir film. The way in which the narration at the start with the Batman talking through his diary entry about the night and everything that had happened and the thoughts going through, I loved that, and it added to that gritty tone. The
I'll
fact
probably
that
come back to the
a noir film and the noir genre was gangsters, it was seedy, it was dark, and it's exactly what we've got. And I think when we took, because a positive that we were excited about was the tone of it, and I feel like the start of it was an absolute fantastic start to the film. I thought it was brilliant. I loved
Sort
it.
of going off that saying about how ominous and keeping you on edge, like the way it was shot and whatnot. Do you not think that's sort of, this is like a really wanky reason for it, but when he says at the beginning of the film like how like building up on the fear factor of it all, do you not think that was the point they were trying to get across for the person, like the viewer as well, by shooting it that way, so you felt on edge all the time, like that sense was being built up?
Yeah.
That he was trying to get at.
That's the positive, isn't it?
Oh no, yeah, absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
And
Like, do you think that's what they were
This
getting at?
links to a point I'm going to make in another video, but it's this idea that it allows the visuals to tell the story instead of the actual dialogue. Whereas, yes, it's him narrating, but you're mainly focusing on everything that's happened, and the shots to the Batman logo and the shots to the shadows and the gangs and all the parts of it. I thought I loved the start.
I want to come back to that, but mainly because it links to the end, and it feels weird talking about basically the end of the movie before we've even really talked about much of it.
Yeah.
But it will tie in that narration scene, because I'm probably like a bit more. I'm very mixed on that opening. It's very much like I love it, and then also there's big problems I've got with it, but it's really bookended by the whole movie. So
I'm going to go next with my next point.
yeah.
The Riddler.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Dano. We said it. The cast. I was buzzed off my tits for it. Did he disappoint? Did he? No, he did not. The man is brilliant. The Riddler was brilliant.
Absolutely terrifying.
It's not Heath Ledger, but he's bloody up there and can be in the conversation. I feel after that performance.
Great, because it wasn't trying to really be anything like that. It wasn't trying to compete, which I see a lot of the movie as, especially because of this whole the tone like we're talking about. It's trying to still be a part of, but bring something new to this idea of dark, gritty, realistic, and it did. But he's a good example of that, of the fact that they could have so easily just been like, oh, we've got to stick to this routine, but they weren't trying to compete. They were confident enough. I think they could have been more confident in what they were making, but at the end of the day, what they did make, it was surprising enough to think, okay, I get why they were maybe like either held back on certain things or maybe didn't think they could have been good enough at what they've done. But yeah, it's just a great example of that working.
I loved the fact that he wasn't a flamboyant mess like every other Riddler's been. Don't get me wrong, the Gotham Riddler I like, but and Jim Carrey's Riddler is
still
bloody
campy though,
stupid.
Yeah,
He is, but
after the
it's
reveal, which is great.
yeah, but it's not a case of he's wearing a bright green suit and he's running around shouting all these riddles.
Oh no, I meant the one from Gotham still campy.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
This one, well, there's elements where he just comes across as a bit over the top, but I feel like that's part of.
Yeah, I
It's
suppose
fine, like,
that's what I would,
yeah.
from my reaction. It wasn't that I agree with like maybe the word, but what you meant by it. I'm thinking, it's, to me it was after he got revealed as who he was. That, and I think that's why it was great, because it was just a person. He was a prisoner at that point. He wasn't the character that he was portraying on his quest that he was doing.
That scene with him and
Which
Batman
is,
in the prison cell reminds me of him and Joker in the prison cell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. I got goosebumps thinking about it now. That for me was the best scene in the whole film.
And this whole thing
film.
about not competing, but they've literally had a scene that is really similar, but they still seem separate enough.
It's similar, but they're still independent.
It's one of the best successes if they can do something like that.
Just spine tingling. Just Paul Dano just talking. Go, talk,
Yeah,
do what you
that-
want, mate. Feel
yeah.
free. Talk for 3 hours if you want, lad. Keep going, keep going, keep going. He was that scene is absolutely brilliant. What else do you want to add, Jams?
Well, just the cast as a whole, I thought was fantastic. To be fair,
Yeah.
finally get emo Batman. All the emo kids finally seen.
But I still, even the people that were confident in it, I don't know if they knew if it was going to work until it did.
Yeah.
And I think even the people that maybe saw problems with it can appreciate what they were doing.
Yeah. I think I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
I'd have liked more depth to the Batman. I feel like he was quite there and that's it. There wasn't much depth to him as a character because there was this sort of expectation that we already know he's an orphan, we already know everything that's happened to him, so they didn't really delve deep into the grieving or the stuff he was actually going through. I liked it,
Yeah.
I appreciate exactly what they were doing. I'd have just liked a bit more depth because I felt like his dialogue sometimes was very stale when he was talking at times. I felt like it could have added to the scene more, especially like I've just said Paul Dano talking.
Yeah.
That scene, I felt like the Batman's, although he's supposed to be like that, his responses, they might as well not have been in the actual dialogue. You could have just let the Riddler talk. I just wanted him to be a bit more impactful at times.
He was winding him up though.
Yeah.
Like there's a point where the Riddler thinks Batman's on his side,
Mm.
and Batman says these things like you're insane and stuff, and he starts losing his mind. And I don't know if he needs to be given much back. He's just winding him up to try and expose what his plan is really.
No, I know what you mean. I'm not saying.
It's just Batman, isn't it? It's kind of hard to make him like the Riddler. Do you know,
No, I don't want
dialogue
to. No, I don't want him to be like that. I just thought some of his dialogue sometimes could have been more impactful.
I think as much as he's the one you sort of centre on, I think, and this might just be my own opinion on the film, I think it's more the dialogue rather than Batman's dialogue.
Yeah.
I think the dialogue on the whole, there was great bits like we just said about parts of the Riddler, but on the whole, it wasn't the strength of the film. I'll come back on it on sort of like a lighter note of thinking that it clearly wasn't the intention anyway. It wasn't their main motivation to set out to make like a movie that was all about just this intricate dialogue that had you completely invested in that. I feel like there was much more bigger concerns that they had. Yeah, it'd be great if we had some like great dialogue, but yeah, to me that was
Who needs dialogue in a film?
that was one of the points that fell a bit flat, considering it being such a big film.
Yeah.
Because you do expect those films to be jam-packed with really juicy dialogue.
I agree. I feel like you're going to add something there.
Well, it's more to do with like the way he was sort of portrayed. He's like he
Go
was
on.
weird. Like
Yeah.
because I was thinking like you've got to be weird to be doing what he's doing,
Yeah.
and with him still being sort of fresh to it and still working himself out. The fact that you come across as this weird sort of messed up.
I'd have liked to see that battle with himself a little bit more.
I think like at the end of it, when he sort of realises what he's going to do.
Batman. I'd have liked to see that battle with himself a little bit more. I feel like he was constantly doing something.
I think it sort of leaves it open at the end though with that, where they could then go into it because at the end when it's sort of insinuating, he realises what he's got to be as Batman,
Yeah.
or what Batman has to be. Sorry, then they've got room to work with it. But like at first, it's like he's still weird with it. So
I feel like the main lesson of this film for him is what it means to be Batman. Because at the start, he just feels like he needs to beat people up, and that's going to accomplish the goal. But when he realises that just beating his way into enemies isn't going to work to save the city, he knows that he needs to be there for the people more.
Yeah. A beacon of hope.
And he gets framed in that way because it's like it's still his like understanding, but people taking, whether it's like a movie that's being a bit too spoon-feed and it's literally saying this is what you're meant to think, or whether it's character just going like that, it's like I think people are kind of lulled into thinking that we've got to like believe what this main character's saying, but it's literally just because it began and ended with this idea of his narration, his like thinking, but it's like that's just where he's at, because the audience everyone, even if they're not into like superhero films, everyone likes Batman for some reason, or they like just they think he's a badass, but like everyone around him is meant to think that he's just weird. Or you've got the public just thinking, like, wondering what the hell this guy's doing, or you get a classic thing about superheroes and they're always calling them freaks or something. You get the cops in this film literally calling him a freak or something. It's like, where we're looking at it and we're thinking, oh, you call Batman a freak to his face, like, what are you on about? But it's because we're in this side of the screen.
Sorry, I was going to say, just with the cops, I feel like some of them change their opinion on Batman far too quickly. I'd prefer if they hated him for the whole thing.
Well, I'll just tangent off on that, and I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
When did they start liking it? Apart from
it's that geezer where he breaks in and goes, and finally realises what the carpenter tool is for.
Oh, he's just on his own.
Yeah, no, that annoys me. I'd rather not have been there.
The jokey one, he was like sort of hates Batman and then sees him as Bruce Wayne. He's like, oh, hey, Mr. Wayne, he's being all sort of like I get it, but it seemed to do that a lot. It seemed to do that a lot with a lot of these moments where you got. I didn't mind it. I can get why people might see it as cheesy, or I can get why people see it as really impactful. But say with the recurring event that he keeps seeing the mayor's son, and that was the relevance to his backstory. And that's the whole thing about what you were saying. We're meant to know that he was orphan, this, that, and the other, and stuff. And I don't think they were pushing that as much. I don't think they were pushing that as much as in Spider-Man: Homecoming, when they're literally just going, we are not doing that origin story again. We're just going to have him mention like a spider once to his best mate in passing, like they always talk about it, because they were so conscious they don't want to go through that again. Whereas this, I don't think it probably was trying to avoid it that much.
It tied heavily into the Riddler though, because he was trying to expose Gotham's corrupt big names, and I feel like he thought Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne were one of those, or two of those people.
Yeah.
So the fact, I don't know, and he thought Bruce Wayne was one of those people as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like you have, if they didn't have to tell it this way, but I feel like it was more impactful on the story if they involve. I liked what they did with his parents not being all good and.
Yeah, I love that. Good, nice.
I mean, I'll come back to that, but you carry on.
I liked that they were a little bit corrupt themselves. That Batman had this thing in his head where he was like supposed to be all righteous, and then realizes that he's not actually from a righteous family. He's from a corrupt family like everyone else, sort of. And
that's why I didn't like Alfred. This could sound horrible. I wish he'd have died at that point. Because Batman would have lost more then, and I feel like it would have been better. So I feel like the scenes, it was one of my doubts of Andy Serkis being Alfred. I just feel like he might as well not have been in the film.
From what you...
Because there was no weight to anything that he was saying, other than that bit where he sits in the hospital and Batman's like, oh, you lied to me, blah, 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 and he goes, I know your father was a good... Shut up, just let him think that it's dirty and it's rubbish, because his world's crumbling. I like it. Leave it alone now. Go away.
As much as I don't agree with like him either not being it or him dying, I completely get it from the fact that his only role was that point.
Yeah.
Was that moving moment, if you call it that, of him basically going back on what he's just learned and that. So, but linking back to what you're just saying about liking this revelation that his parents maybe weren't all he thought he was, and it's like he's clearly got to his like 30s before he's realised that, which is something that is the metaphor that every person's meant to go through, as oh your past or this or that isn't what you thought it was because you're not a kid anymore. But basically, what I liked from that personally was the back and forth. It comes into the Riddler conversation when he's in prison. Is this who do you believe again? Because it still comes down to so many things where you get given something that looks like an answer, but it's not actually. This is the truth, and especially with then the Riddler's whole motivation of being this, exposing this truth, and we think we get it by the end of the film, but we get pretty much none of it, especially with stuff like that. We don't know whether to believe Falcone or Alfred in terms of who Thomas Wayne was as a person, because they're the only people that had that interaction, which is based around. It's just that Bruce believes Alfred, because of course he does. I still think that, yeah, it was pulled back, and Thomas Wayne probably was good, and that's probably what they were coming back to, whereas he did just make a mistake. And I like that, again, in the fact that they offered you up this sort of like, not cliche, but it's become like more used, this whole, oh, you take this like noble character, and I'm not really like precious about these traditional archetypes or anything, but you take this noble father figure and you destroy it, because that's this common thing that happens now, and it's not that I hate that when that happens, but it's the fact that you already see it as a bit of a trope now. So the fact that they did it, or at least lured you in with it and offered you in, and then also came back on it and says, no, it's actually good. It's sort of, it was like challenging some of these old tropes, challenging some of these new tropes that are happening, and it was just going, yeah, but we're still not giving you a straight answer. So I like that part of it, probably.
I felt like some parts of the film were pointless. I feel like there were some shots that were used and some scenes that were used that didn't need to be in there, because I thought some parts were underdeveloped. It's like the scene at the end where he's narrating, or I can't even remember if he's narrating or what, where they're just biking next to each other for about, it seems, endless time. I feel like that wasn't needed. I feel like there's a couple of the scenes that weren't needed. I can't remember off the top of my head. I had them written down. But it's like, I say some parts were lacklustre and underdeveloped. I'd wanted more of Selena Kyle. I wanted more of her sort of going rogue and not listening to Batman and collecting the dirty cop. I can't remember what his name was. I'd have liked to see more of that, other than the bike bit at the end. And there seemed like an awful lot. And I know it was, I've said it was noir and I liked it, this detective sort of film, yes. But I felt like there was a lot of just watching Batman bike to one place, to another, to another, to another, to another. I don't need to see that. Obviously he's got a bike, I know he's going to get there somehow, because that's what his purpose is. I don't need to watch him get on his bike, get dressed and follow for a while. I feel like you could have used that time a bit more wisely to add depth to characters like Penguin, who I thought was a bit lacklustre, to Selena Kyle, who was brilliant, but I want to see more of her.
You should see more.
To Alfred, who I thought was pointless, you could have used that to develop him as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I just thought some parts in it weren't needed, and that just felt like filler scenes to fill the 2 hours 55, which I didn't like.
Yeah, I mean that was when we first spoke about our sort of excitement, our fear and stuff like that. I think that long run time had everyone sort of terrified and excited of what they could do, because you just knew if they'd slipped up on maybe 30 seconds, you're going to feel it, which makes no sense because you've got so much more time for other stuff to happen. But you do notice it more when there's missed opportunities or lacking sort of moments.
One of my few negatives is maybe pacing, so it kind of ties into you a little bit. But I do feel like there's a lot of scenes that can't be cut out. It's just elements of those scenes could have been. I just feel like the scene could still have been there, but the time. I see what you mean with him getting on the bike or whatever. But I don't know. I wasn't thinking that while I was watching it, but maybe afterwards I was thinking maybe this middle bit is a bit slower than the end and the start. Yeah,
I'd agree with you massively. I feel like the start is so good and so engaging, and then it drops off a little bit, which in a film that's 3 hours long, yes, you're going to get those drop-offs. I felt it dropped off for a long period of time, and it was this slow build-up, which obviously it was going to be, but if you'd shaved various scenes out and sort of got rid of some of the pointless scenes, you could have added to keep that level up to what the start and the finish was. So sort of
one of my positives sort of counteracts that a little bit though, because it's sort of, I like how you follow him throughout the film pretty much the whole way through. The whole film feels like it takes place as one event. Like maybe there might be a couple of days each apart, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it just happens in one day, sort of thing. It feels like it just follows Batman through the whole film, and going from detective work on one riddle to going to the place what he's figured out where the riddle is, to trying to figure out how that ties in, and then the next one, and then the next one. And I quite liked how it built up like that.
I think
the way in which they did that was good. The Riddler's sort of clues, because it wasn't thrown in his face. It was him who was having to decipher it would be an envelope. I liked the way they did that. It wasn't everything on a big screen and everything shouted and so on. It was very much just Batman until it was the DA, wasn't it, for the funeral. That's when he went public, really, which I thought that was brilliant. I really liked
I think
that.
from what you were saying with the pacing, but in terms of character in the world, rather than the pacing that we experience, I think, it links back to, even that narration at the start, like his view of himself, the fact that he's not right, and I liked that they established that someone that's doing what Batman is doing isn't wired up right.
So I mean, it's perfectly normal behaviour.
And the fact how by the end of it, and you say that there's like flood,
I think he's just come from.
he actually gets like a
Right night of it.
you get like a definite date of November 5th or something. You basically get this idea of, it's been like a week's worth of stuff, but you already get told at the start from his own monologue that he's like this nocturnal creature and all this stuff that he broods about.
People think he lurks in the shadows, but he is the shadows.
All right, Robert. That was. I keep saying I'm going to come back to it later, but it was
Running out of time, Tom. We can't go back to it later.
It's a bit of cheese. We'll do a post-credit scene.
Do you know what? Funny you say that. I quite like the post-credit scene they did.
Yeah. And it's one of those sort of
it's different,
Fitting.
it's like that sort of post-marketing as well, where it's like you've already people who've got to that point have already come to see your film, but it's still doing that same thing where it's like leading them somewhere rather than just to your next movie or your team-up movie or something.
I'd have loved to see the amount of Google searches. What's the website?
It is actually a thing, apparently.
Yeah,
It's got riddles and it sends you back to the Tom Swain video.
Well, I heard someone question.
Yeah, doesn't it say
Because they
something?
keep putting hush on everything and everything, so they're basically implying that it's going to be to do with him.
Yeah, I like it.
Which is actually tying into the Riddler thing and the whole Riddler's big plan, because Hush has something to do with him when going back in the comics. So.
Question.
Yeah.
The person in the cell. Who is it?
Yeah.
Because there's talks of it being Joker, but there's also talks of it being Two-Face that I've now seen
First
as well.
glance, first glance, I just instantly, because I didn't even think they were going to touch the Joker, but everyone thought like, are they? Aren't they? What are they going to do? What are they going to attach it to? But first glance, I just went Two-Face, and then it instantly sort of just like peeled away, and I was like, I don't know what they're doing. But carry on.
No, I was just curious to what we thought around this table. So I feel that's a good place to sort of
feel
finish.
like it's definitely the Joker. But
I feel like it definitely is.
I'm not massively happy about it.
No.
That was one of my main negatives about it, that they had to throw the Joker in this film straight away.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of want other villains first, but I don't mind the Joker being in necessarily some of the films going down the line.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the first one, to have him back in it already, I don't know. Maybe he's not going to be a part of the story in the future. Maybe he's just maybe that's literally going to be it.
Do you think he's going to be like a puppeteer in Arkham a little bit?
See, literally
we'll see clips of it again.
Does that, and even if it is just that recurring thing, where it's like, well, one you can see is like in the position he is, he's not like some old man. So he's basically got a lot of time ahead to work with, and it's a case of, think about it. He's in prison, he's in a cell, he's already there, and everyone's just already assuming or everyone will be assuming after seeing that, they'll be like, he's going to be out, and he's going to be the next villain, he's this and that. It's like, well, what if it happens very normally and he's just still in prison?
he should stay there. If it is the Joker, he should stay there.
Yeah.
Well, who was it that mentioned? Was it you that if there was a next one, he's doing Mr. Freeze or one?
I did, apparently.
Was it
He's
you?
trying, which would be. He's like.
Can we bring Arnie back for it? It's the question. If you're listening, Mr. Reeves,
Please.
bring him back.
I think this is.
Freeze! That's all you need.
I think that's where.
What a shit film.
Because I heard someone saying that. I think you said before we saw it that that's what he wanted, and at that point, I still thought, yeah, they're just happy for it, but yeah, they're going for this darker, gritty tone, whatever. So when he's saying freeze, I was like, how are they gonna?
Yeah, I want to see how they tackle it in this.
And then after
context,
watching this, I'm still thinking that, but I'm also, again, almost quite happy for it because it comes back to this me saying it was a superhero comic book movie, whereas I think a lot of people are just going, "What are you talking about?" No, it wasn't. My main thing is what I didn't get to say when you said about Gotham and like the feel of it is, I mean, Gotham was basically the main point. Like it was like you got its own character basically, and that's what I was craving. I know I've said this before, but I was craving that anyway. Was the fact that as much as it was not distinctive, it was recognisable in the Nolan trilogy. But you just got it when you're saying it's just dull, it's sandy, it's just blocked, it's just a city, and that's
a shithole.
That's equally. Whereas in this, it was what I wanted. It was that sort of. It was that character of its own. Admittedly, yeah, I think the style of it wasn't quite what I expected. It's not exactly what I would have wanted, but unmistakably, it was its own thing.
Yeah, I felt like we saw a lot of Gotham, but not a lot of Gotham. If that makes sense. I felt like we went to various different places, but actually seen nothing of it at all. It was just that one particular
The sense
place.
of it as a city, or maybe you're obvious. Just shot above, especially at the end where they did the whole flood thing. That's the only time you actually got to see it, and it was a case of, and they did Madison Square Garden, so it was basically like, it is basically like their twisted New York.
That was Gotham Town Hall.
They literally, where they kept everyone at the end.
Did they call it Madison Square Garden?
It's got to be, it is, they definitely said that.
No, did they call it that?
Yeah.
I thought it was Gotham something.
I'm literally picturing.
Can't use proper landmarks in Gotham. What are you talking about?
That's why I found it weird because I was convinced that.
I'm gonna have to go watch it a third time.
Oh no!
Oh dear.
Right, I'll see you in
I've got
2 hours and 56 minutes.
I haven't got like the knowledge base of DC, but in my head I thought out of all of them, you'd just think maybe Metropolis was maybe the sort of like the New York, and Gotham was maybe something else. But like, as in where they're not meant to be the actual city.
Metropolis is London, Gotham is Birmingham.
I'm not really the answer, but you just like brought me back, man.
Right.
Sorry.
Boy, I'm in the shadows.
He's called Wayne Bruce.
Love that.
Speaking of Gotham, by the way.
Go on. Just before we round it up, go on.
Like, pretty much a lot of the Riddler's plan actually went through. Like, Gotham's in absolute shit at the end of it, and the martial law sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
He's pretty much gone through.
Everyone really won, really.
Yeah.
Which I quite liked.
So that was kind of cool. A bit of a you didn't just get like a typical superhero film. Like he comes through in the end and wins, sort of thing.
I like that. I'd just like to see him a bit more vulnerable and a little bit more threatened. Because I feel like even though it was about him and we followed him, I didn't feel like the character of Batman himself was ever really threatened or pushed to the brink of.
I don't know, like seeing him actually be a bit
insanity.
shit and like get shot up and everything, and actually like
You
fucking
need it.
Yeah, but so like, he got shot by a shotgun a yard away, but his bulletproof suit saved him.
Yeah, but the next time.
None of it touched his face.
The next time, the guy was going to aim for his forehead. Not his chin.
No, it's
Not his chin. He's always on this.
But the shotgun spread's not going to. Oh, no, it's not. Fucking hell, shit.
They have Stormtrooper aim, that's what.
Yeah,
it's because
they didn't have his fucking glasses and a bin bag on.
To be fair, he is the shadows, so you're not going to see him, are you?
Exactly.
And it was dark.
Oh.
It's because he inspired mass shooters, but they all turned up with like hunting rifles. And I know I already look like a psychopath, but
That statement you've just. And on that note, we're going to finish it there, Thomas.
well, good because I mentioned 0.5.
Actually, can we just talk about the music? I'll give the music.
Yeah, sorry, go on, that last point, go.
Fantastic. The music was insane. Very
Yes.
Yeah.
Very fitting. And
The reprise of like that Nirvana track as well, at the beginning and the end.
It was,
Oh, I love
it was
that.
repetitive, but I don't care.
Exactly. It
Every
was.
single score just made the scene so much better.
Well, it added to the grit, the tone we're talking about. Isn't it? I thought it was spot on.
Yeah, but even in the tense
Prize.
Sounds right, doesn't
Is
it?
it prize?
That was like
Prize.
Yeah, I think that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
Right, there's our review. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. It is good. Yes, we have talked about various negatives, mainly from myself, but that's because I was expecting so much. It is good. Matt would say that.
Fucking class.
Yeah, Jan would say that. Tom would say that. It's a thumbs up from us. It didn't fulfil its potential for me, but I still very much enjoyed it. Yeah, go and watch it if you already haven't. And if you already have, let us know if you agree, please, down in the comments or on the Instagram page. It'll be linked at the bottom. And if you could, and I know we said we wouldn't do this, but it does help, give it a like if you ever watch this video. Just press the button. Thank you very much. Sorry, James. Au revoir.
Stool pigeon.
Whoa. James has had bollocks in his mouth,
I know.
and now he's not shit.